The average accounting firm sells for 1 times gross revenue. If you value price, I've seen bookkeeping firms sell for 2 to 3 times gross revenue. If you're in a subscription model, you can probably get somewhere between 5 and 10 times, because annual recurring revenue is much more valued by the market than is even value pricing revenue, and certainly more valuable than hourly billing.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I am your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be not only valuable, but an amazing one. I am honored to have our very special guest return to the podcast. He is the authority on value pricing. He's an acclaimed author, speaker, entrepreneur, and co-host of the Soul of Enterprise podcast. Ron Baker, welcome back to the show.
Thrilled to be back. Thanks for having me, Michael.
It's great to have you. And it has been a while. We were talking pre-recording that you were on the show back in 2016, one of our very first guests on the podcast, the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. And I'm sure you've been up to a lot since then. So maybe tell us a little bit about what's been going on for you since 2016.
Wow, I know it seems like eons ago, doesn't it? In probably, I think it was around 2018, we started to notice a trend that was, unmistakable in the economy around the world. And this is all pre-COVID. And that was the subscription economy. More and more, we're subscribing to things rather than owning them. And we tried to keep track of this. We tried to keep track of businesses that were offering either products or services on a subscription basis, whether they were B2B, business to business, or business to consumer. And we just started to see more and more and more and more, where today I can subscribe to a Porsche, I can subscribe to a boat, I can subscribe to a home in 40 odd some countries. So the subscription economy is here. And it's actually one of the fastest growing segments of the economy. It's growing something like 7 times the S&P 500 index. And during COVID, these businesses thrived. Not only did they not shrink, they grew. Like half of them grew really big. And it's not just the Netflix and the Pelotons and the things that, we did because we were isolated at home. It was other businesses as well. So they showed great resilience during COVID. And that got me very interested because I've been watching a trend in the medical profession for a long time known as concierge doctors. These are doctors that don't take insurance. These are doctors that just have a direct relationship with their patients, and the patients subscribe to them. And the doctors basically do whatever is required. They're their general physician, and whatever a general physician is capable of doing, you're covered. They do home office visits. They do office visits. They do same-day appointments. They always have capacity because they work with much fewer patients. And that's always intrigued me. And now we're starting to see that model thrive, at least here in the United States, and with over 1,700 direct primary care physicians across the U.S. And the more I studied that model, the more I realized this would be perfect for accountants and bookkeepers, because, Michael, I think there's a ton of similarities between what medicine does, what doctors do, and what we as accountants or bookkeepers do. And that is, they keep us physically healthy and we keep our customers financially healthy. And that's a very holistic thing. We have to, they have to treat us they have to treat us as a human being. They can't just go after the disease. They can't just heal us when they're sick. they have to keep us healthy, and we have to do the same thing for our customers. We have to know about them, know about their family history. The more time we can spend with them, the more we can help them grow and thrive into the future and achieve their dreams, help them achieve those transformations that everybody so desires, taking me from where I am to where I want to be. And the subscription model puts that relationship at the center of the business. So we're no longer pricing things based on transactions and scopes of work. We're basically telling the customer, anything you need that we're capable of doing, you're covered. And that to me is very exciting.
It's very exciting. And all of the examples that you gave are so interesting to see it happen. I mean, it was just yesterday I saw where you could literally subscribe somebody else's car. So we know about Uber, I need a ride, but literally this is it's like the car rental industry. You can literally subscribe to that person's car for like a day or a week or a month or whatever, and it's just It's mind-boggling where this is going. Now, with regard to the work that you've done for so many years, which is to talk about value pricing, what are some of the differences, and how does it? You mentioned a little bit earlier before the interview that there were some things that might go away, but it was a challenge for people to get to even the value pricing conversation over the years. Do you think this will be more challenging, different? What's that going to look like?
It's a great question. And we're already starting to see some accounting firms move into this space. We don't have a lot of experience. Again, we are at the cutting edge. So my benchmark is not the accounting profession. It is the medical profession, because believe it or not, concierge medicine started in 1996. And in fact, back then it was so new, we didn't even have a name for it. I wrote about it in my book, and one of my books, and I called it retainer-based medicine. It's kind of like calling it, a TV, a picture radio. I think when they first came out, that's what they called it. We always try and label something that's new based on, what we had before, like horseless carriages, right?
That's right.
Things like that.
We'll get back to the interview right after this word from our sponsor. Hey there, accountants and bookkeepers. It goes without saying our economy has changed, and with it, so have the needs of your clients. Employees are in short supply, and employers are hungry to find, hire, and keep talented people. After all, there is no bottom line without the team who helps drive the business. For accountants and bookkeepers, this means financial support is just one piece of the puzzle. To help your clients' businesses truly thrive, you need to offer guidance around people operations too. Things like health and financial benefits, hiring and onboarding, performance, and all the things that make your clients' workplaces rewarding. Fortunately, Gusto offers accountants and bookkeepers the tools to manage all of this and more. Their comprehensive HR platform, people advisory training programs, and data-driven insights can help make you an irreplaceable asset to the businesses who rely on you. Join Gusto today. Become People Advisor certified, access perks like exclusive discounts and CPE credits, all while growing your practice. Plus, your own payroll is totally free. Just visit gusto.com/The Successful Bookkeeper. That's gusto.com/The Successful Bookkeeper. Thank you for hearing from our sponsor. Now let's get back to the interview.
So in the medical profession, this is 25 years old now, 26 years old, but there are some major differences. When you think about hourly billing, that is pricing the inputs. We're adding up how much time we spent, blah, blah, blah. And then we kind of moved to this hybrid where we gave a fixed price, but it was still based on estimated time, but we would fix the price in advance. And that was for a very specific defined scope of work. And that was like pricing the outputs. Here's the scope of work, and here's going to be our price. Then we moved to value pricing, and I said, no, don't try and price the work, price the customer. price the customer because value is subjective. And I will be talking about this at the workshop, but pricing the customer is the tenet of what I'm going to call value pricing 1.0. And then value pricing 2.0 changes that a little bit. Now we're pricing the relationship because it's not based upon a scope of work. We're not even trying to define all the potential things that we're going to do for a customer in a given period of time. We're giving them a form of insurance and saying, whatever you need that we're capable of doing. I mean, we can't give them flying lessons or things that are outside of our purview of expertise, but whatever they need financially that we can help them with and can do competently, they're covered. And so it puts the relationship at the center of the business. And from a pricing perspective, what you're doing there is you're pricing a portfolio. So we've decoupled the price from the scope of work. And we're building in insurance and we're building in a premium so we can cover ups and downs in our capacity that's going to be needed to serve those customers. The other thing that happens in this model is we reduce the number of customers we serve because the whole goal is to spend more time with them, have them spend more time with you so you can help them at a deeper level and transform them to where they want to be in the future. And so those are the two big differences between value pricing 1.0 and 2.0. You price the relationship and you price the portfolio. And I know a lot of people are probably out there thinking, wait a minute, value pricing 1.0, you price the customer. Now he's saying price the relationship. What's the difference? It sounds semantical. Well, it's not, because for instance, today I can subscribe to a Porsche. Now, when you go to the market with a subscription offering, you have to, what Walt Disney called, plus it. You have to make it a better offering. You can't just go to the market and expect to double or triple your price with the exact same services that you're offering now, no matter how you price now. Common services command common prices. I'm trying to get firms to offer uncommon services so they can command uncommon prices. And when you go to the market with an offering, you need to make it better than what you're doing now. So for instance, Porsche. Today I can subscribe to a Porsche. And for, I think it's $3,500 a month, I don't just get one car. I get a fleet. I have 7 models to choose from. I can trade out as much as I want. I can call them up and say, hey, you know what? I got some guests coming out. I'd like an SUV. They'll white glove an SUV out. They'll white glove my convertible away. And then if, the guests leave in 2 days, I can get my convertible back, white gloved by them. I can drive as much as I want. I can switch out as much as I want. And they cover everything except gas and tolls. And people say, well, how's that different than buying a Porsche or leasing a Porsche? Because it's not tied to a car. I have a direct relationship with Porsche. I'm subscribing to Porsche, not a car. That's a different psychological and different behavioral type of relationship. When we subscribe to something, be it Netflix or Disney Plus or, sports package or whatever it is that you subscribe to, you feel like you have a direct relationship with that customer, even if it's a B2B type subscription. And that's the psychology behind the subscription model. It's a deeper, more meaningful relationship. And now the focus becomes, we're not looking at trying to, we're forgetting about the math of the moment. How many hours did it take us to do this job? How many employees did they add? How many accounts did they add? All those things go away because now what we're doing is we're focusing on customer lifetime value. And so we're forgetting the math of the moment and we're building lifetime annuities with annual recurring revenue. So our income statement looks different. Our KPIs look different. Everything about this model is different than a traditional value pricing or hourly billing firm. And I think it opens up lots of possibilities for the accounting profession to differentiate itself, command higher prices, but more importantly, offer better services to their customers, offer them deep and meaningful transformations. Let's stop talking about services. What we're doing is we're helping our customers thrive and flourish. We're helping them, grow their business, retire sooner, buy a second home, get their kid into college, plan their legacy for after they're gone. Whatever it is that your firm does, you're helping people transform from where they are to where they want to be. And when we do that, we're not just doing services, we are touching people's lives and their souls. And when you offer transformations, the customer is the product. The product is not the bookkeeping, it's not the financials, it's the customer. You're transforming the customer. The services are just a means to that end. And if we price well and go to the market with a superior offering, I think businesses can thrive this way, firms, and they'll also be more valuable when you go to sell your firm. The average accounting firm sells for 1 times gross revenue. If you value price, I've seen bookkeeping firms sell for 2 to 3 times gross revenue. If you're in a subscription model, you can probably get somewhere between 5 and 10 times, because annual recurring revenue is much more valued by the market than is even value pricing revenue, and certainly more valuable than hourly billing. So, long-winded answer, but those are some of the differences.
It's remarkable, and I'm excited for the industry. We'll get back to the interview right after this word from our sponsors. With the rise in remote work and cloud accounting software, I have to ask, are you still dealing with shoeboxes of receipts or manually inputting transactions from bank statements? If you are, say goodbye to the shoebox and hello to Dext. Complete the bookkeeping for all those shoebox year-end clients in a fraction of the time. No more manually inputting transactions from receipts and bank statements into an Excel spreadsheet or ledger software. Simply upload your receipts and bank statements to Dext. It will extract the information from every transaction and return the data to you. Integrate with QuickBooks, Xero, Sage, and more in seconds. Visit Dext.com to learn how it can make the businesses you advise more productive, profitable, and powerful with better data and insights. Are you struggling to secure the right clients? Are you frustrated that prospects are not seeing your value? Well, it's time to change that. Introducing the Convert with Value Workshop Series. It's a 2-day virtual event on March 22nd and 23rd, and for our Australian friends, March 23rd and 24th. You'll learn how to qualify and convert prospects into clients like never before. Plus, you'll discover the power of value pricing, including how to create pricing packages that truly represent your monetary worth. There will be great session leaders such as value pricing experts Ron Baker and Mark Wickersham, and Accelerate to Advisor founder Lisa Campbell. It's a workshop series you don't want to miss. So register now at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com/value. That's thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com/value. You'll be glad you did. Thank you for hearing from our sponsors who help make this show possible. Now, let's get back to the interview. I know that many, as mentioned, had challenges, even getting to 1.0. What do you think will be the hurdles? I mean, you've talked about a few of them. It's a mental shift for them. But what do you think some of the hurdles will be that our listener can start to think about to overcome to get to this?
Yeah, there's a lot, but let me offer you a glimmer of hope here. And I find this to be really cool, because most people have direct personal experience with subscriptions. When I ask people, how many things do you subscribe to? I've yet to find somebody who can't say at least 5 things. Amazon Prime usually hits the list, Disney, Netflix. There may be something, QuickBooks. If you start thinking about your firm, you probably subscribe to various apps and software and blah, blah, blah. So one guy told me, gee, I'm over 100 when I think about it. That direct experience, people already know, they can relate to it. And they know, you know what? This is a different psychological relationship because it's not based on a transaction. When you're in a subscription, you're paying a periodic amount for recurring value. And that recurring value is getting better all the time. Netflix is constantly dropping new content. Notice that your price doesn't change when they drop new content. And people say, well, that's easy for Netflix. They're a digital company. It doesn't cost anymore to bring on another 100,000 people. And that's all true. They are digital. But you know what? To produce that content, who do they have to hire? They have to hire some of the most expensive talent in the world, bar none. Creative talent, producers, actors, actresses, right? I mean, that's not cheap. They're making massive investments in their content, but when they drop it and make it available to us, the prices don't change every time they drop new content. In other words, they've decoupled what we get from what we pay. And they just said, we assure you, we're going to always come out with new content, and it'll be more than you could ever watch in 30 lifetimes. And so I actually think if a bookkeeper is in hourly billing now, that they can leapfrog over value pricing 1.0 and go right directly to 2.0. And I think that leap is going to be less stressful because they already understand relationships. They already understand how important that is in working closely with customers. And I think this is where bookkeepers have an enormous advantage over accountants and CPAs, in that bookkeepers already work with fewer customers. And that's part and parcel of this model. You've got to have fewer customers. There's no way that you can provide deep, meaningful transformations if you're serving 500 customers. You can't do it. I'm sorry. It cannot be done. At best, you're just a compliance shop and doing their tax returns and accounting or whatever. But bookkeepers, because they have so fewer clients, they can engage in those deep, meaningful transformations. And I think it's easier for them to relate to value pricing 2.0 or the subscription model than it is value pricing 1.0. And so you can just leapfrog over it.
I like the sense of that. And I think our listeners going to like leapfrogging too. And I know we also talked about, a little spoiler alert here, you have a book coming out on this very topic. It's not for a few months from the recording of this episode, but can we tease a little bit around how would someone go about even pricing that? Because like you've said, we're decoupling the services, we're decoupling the hours that go into it, we're decoupling what we're going to give to them, and we're really pricing the relationship. How do you do that?
I'll give you an example. First, if I walked into a bookkeeping firm, say a solo, because a lot of them I know are solos, and I looked at their client list and it ranked by revenue, and I saw, the range of, the first thing I do is I'd want to know the range of, annual revenue. And that could be, I don't know, I'm making up numbers here, but I've done this before, and I've seen anywhere from, you have some really small clients that might just come in to, with their shoebox, and you kind of put it together to get the stuff to their accountant or whatever if you don't do taxes. And that might be a $500, $1,000 a year client. And then you may have some other clients that are, more like $500 a month or $1,000 a month, some $4, maybe up to $4, something like that. I know it varies all over and by country and all of that, but that's kind of the range I've seen. And the first thing I'd say is, you got to be really intelligent about your strategy and your positioning within that range. Do you want to play at the low end? Do you want to play in the middle? Do you want to play at the high end? Because you can't be all things to all people. You pay a complexity tax the more customers you have, because they're in your system. You have to track them. It just makes your business more complex. If you're niched, this is much easier to do if you only deal with one type of client, such as microbrewers or dentists or restaurants or franchisees or whatever it is. If you're a true expert in that area, then your range of prices is probably in a tighter band than being spread out all over. So, and these are not pricing questions. These are strategy and positioning questions. You have to figure out, what do I want to be when I grow up? Who's my ideal client? What does our firm stand for? Your purpose, your why. And then that kind of dictates your strategy, where you're going to play, where you're going to be able to make the biggest impact. That also dictates your positioning. McDonald's and a nice fancy steakhouse are both restaurants, but their positioning is different, right? And firms have to figure that out. And then once you get those things figured out, your pricing strategy is subservient to your strategy and your positioning and your purpose. In other words, your purpose, strategy, and positioning drive your pricing, not the other way around. And if you're very clear on what type of customers you work with, because I really do think firms are defined by the customers they don't serve and the services they don't offer, because strategy is all about choices. It's all about trade-offs and choices. You can't do all things for all people, and you can't be all things to all people. You have to say no. You have to draw a line in the sand. And if you've done that clearly, then you can just look at the band of prices there. And let's just say your median price for this type of customer, dentists, restaurants, whatever, you might have a little cluster of a niche. And let's say your median price is, and again, I'm just making up numbers, but let's say it's $4,000 a month. Then I think you might be able to go to the marketplace with this model and get maybe $6,000 to $7,000 to $8,000 a month with this model, because you're also giving them insurance that they can contact you anytime, and that anything that they need that you're capable of doing, they'll be covered.
So let's tuck that number again. So we take our median price, which you said, let's say it's $4,000.
Median. Meaning one half of your prices are above that, one half of your prices are below that.
Got it. So we said about $4,000, and then you think that the amount that you should be getting is
$6,000 to $8,000.
$6,000 to $8,000. So what is that increase then? Is that's some of the insurance buffer? Is that how that's?
Yes. That's to buffer your capacity. Because think about it, none of us want to have a dentist when we have a bad toothache and we call them up and they say, well, we can squeeze you in next week. We always want our professionals to have capacity, right?
Yes.
Always. And we will pay more for that if we know that in advance, that, hey, if you have a problem, we will get you in here same day, even if you call us at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. We'll stay late. We'll do whatever it takes. I mean, and they're going to pay for that. There's a premium for that, but people are willing to do that. They're willing to pay for access to you at any time. They're willing to have you or pay more to have you sit at board meetings or to brainstorm with their team on various things. And this covers that, because obviously different customers are going to have different needs at different times. So you're going to have people, place demands on you sometimes and then not for other times. And it's all going to balance out, because we're looking at it from a portfolio standpoint. We're not trying to figure out profit per job, profit per hour, profit per customer. That all goes away in a subscription. In fact, if I showed you the income statement for a subscription business, there is absolutely no room for profit per job or customer, or even by silo, even bookkeeping, tax, whatever other types of services you might offer, because it's all a portfolio. The customer's paying one price for whatever they need. There's no way to break it out, and it's generating that annual recurring revenue and customer lifetime value. What we're doing here is we're creating annuities for life that are much more valuable than the cost to acquire them. And that's why I think you can get a premium under this model. Because the other thing to think about is, if you're a subscription business and you have this offering and you have this peace of mind and this convenience, and hopefully it's a frictionless customer relationship, customers will pay top dollar for great service like that. And they know they can call you at any time and get a response, and you'll help them with whatever comes up that you're capable of doing. Now, sometimes you're going to have to say, no, we can't do that, or we don't do that, but I know somebody who will. So you kind of leverage your social capital and find other experts that can help fill the gaps in your knowledge and expertise and the services that you provide. But you can still usher and quarterback that relationship. And this is what concierge doctors are really good at. I mean, they can't do surgery, They can't treat cancer. They're not oncologists and they're not surgeons. But when you need those people, they can give you recommendations, and then they'll actually go to the appointment with you and sit there and listen because they know everything about you from a health standpoint, and they'll quarterback that relationship, and they'll monitor you because they're interested in you holistically. And we can do the same thing. And now, how is a customer going to compare my price to the firm down the street who is just quoting an hourly rate? Or maybe they're giving me a fixed price, based on value or just estimated hours, either way. But it's not the same offering, is it? Mm. Which one's got the superior offering?
It's hard to determine because it's going to be based on a lot of, like, it's really a unique, you become a very unique offering in the marketplace.
Uncommon services command uncommon prices.
Magical. So this is exciting. Now, with that example of the premium that you charge, because there's also that you've got the insurance, you've got like that ability to say, I need help right away. There's all of these things that you would get in return. It's an uncommon offering because you're no longer are we just paying for someone's time, but it's also who you connected to. What are the things how can you make other things happen in relation to the work that we do, like you've been talking about? And it really starts to make sense. That is very uncommon. And the value starts to go more with, do I want to have a relationship with this person? If they're the best in the market, if they have all the experience, if they have all the connections, and they have the way to solve the problems the best, you'd want to pay the highest subscription to that service, and there'd only be an unlimited number of subscriptions available. So I would drive the price of that up even further. If you think about it, if you're very niched and you're very experienced, and you have very great connections and all that, you could really see how the price would just start to go up and up and up. Now, the leapfrog over to this, we talked about the premium. We talked about, you got 4,000. We're going to on the median is 4. It's going to be 6. How do you price out then the individuals? Like on the bottom end, do you just take that ratio and look, well, if this person was paying $400 a month, then they would have that? Is that how they would look at it?
You might not keep those bottom folks.
Got it.
That's the whole point of narrowing your number of customers, shrinking it, probably sometimes by 20, 40, maybe even 60%. And then just saying, this is our sweet spot. This is now our minimum price. And that's going to automatically weed some people out. If you have a minimum price and it goes up every year for new customers, then there's no reason to keep the lower end. Now, if you want to play at the lower end, if that's your purpose and that's your strategy, you want to be more like an H&R Block or, a Walmart, which is, that's a very viable strategy. H&R Block makes a lot of money in our profession, but they have a relatively cheap price compared to, say, CPAs. If you want to do that or just work with very small businesses or just startups, I know bookkeepers that just like to work with startups, which is a very difficult market because they tend not to have any money. But if you do want to do that, then your pricing is going to obviously reflect that. You could still offer options, just like we do in Value Pricing 1.0. You could still offer 3 options, but it's not so much tied to services. It's tied to other things. It's tied to access, how fast you'll do something, how quickly can they see you, how many board meetings will you sit in, will you be eligible to attend our webinars that we put on, or maybe you have a CEO roundtable that you hold monthly or quarterly or something like that. Those are the types of things that can make for an added, offering. Like a gold card as opposed to a green card or a bronze card. So we're in the early days of this, but it's not just we're trying to move away from transactions and services and put the emphasis and the pricing on the relationship, because that's really where the value is.
I really like that, and I get that the price that you figured out, that $7,000 or $8,000 price, that becomes, it's like you've said, well, this is my ideal client and now this is my price. And so just by doing that, you're going to only bring in the door your ideal clients because that's the price.
Yeah.
So your business going forward, design, it's like it's built by design and it continues to maintain that design because of the pricing.
Yeah, and only certain clients are going to be willing to pay that price. So you automatically weed out and don't spend time spinning your wheels going after customers that aren't a good fit. You're only going to attract customers that recognize your value, that are willing to pay for it. Now, you got to be good. You got to be able to do what you say, and you've got to be competent. This is why niching, I think, is it's a little bit easier to do this if you're well niched. Like I have a buddy that does nothing but dentists. That's it. Anybody that comes to him who's not a dentist, he won't even touch. He refers it to another CPA friend of mine. And then the dentists that do come to him because they've heard about him, this guy doesn't do much in the way of marketing. He barely has a website. He's not on any social media platform, doesn't have a YouTube channel, doesn't have a LinkedIn page, doesn't have a Facebook page, none of that. But dentists come to him all the time, and he only basically takes on about 20%. Wow. He only wants to work with the people who he really gets along with and who he thinks are doing something innovative in their profession, because he can take a dentist from womb to tomb. He can, he speaks at dental schools. He tells the graduates, this is how you buy into a practice. This is the things you should look for. This is how you start a practice. This is the equipment, the insurance. He knows all of that. He's seen it a million times. And yeah, it sounds kind of boring because we got into public accounting because we like to see different businesses and experience new things. And when you niche, you're kind of seeing the same thing over and over. It's like being in industry. But from a business model perspective, it makes so much more sense to niche and be very, very narrow in what you do, because then you can be an expert at it. People perceive you as an expert. And it's the difference between being a general physician and being an oncologist. We're going to fly anywhere in the world to go to the special oncologist who knows our type of cancer. I'm not going to do that for a general physician.
So interesting. So exciting. I'm really excited for our listener because this really is the future. It's now. And definitely there's some challenges, but we've really heard from you some really clear ways to get there. I'm sure our listener is excited about your book. That's coming out in hopefully November of 2022. But good news for you, listener, because Ron is going to be speaking and sharing his wisdom around value pricing, and I'm sure this new model of pricing at a very special workshop that you've likely heard about. It's part of our Successful Bookkeeper community workshop series. This one is called Convert with Value. That's coming up March 22nd and 23rd for our North American listeners, and then 23rd and 24th for our Australian listeners. Now, don't worry, it's on the same day, except we have different time zones there. And that's at 7 p.m. on the 22nd and 23rd. So there's 2 sessions. They go for 3 hours each. Ron is on the 22nd. Now, can you tell us a little bit? There's one little bit of a teaser, I think, is this smile curve. You're going to be talking about the smile curve. Can you give us a little teaser about what you're going to be talking about?
Yeah, the smile curve is something that we love to use, and I think I'm going to be in the workshop talking more about value pricing 1.0 than I am 2.0. But of course, I'm happy to take questions on 2.0.
Our listener might come and ask a lot of questions of you.
Yeah,
yes,
I'm happy to talk about that.
Yeah,
maybe we can break out into a special group or something for those who want to hear more. But
exactly.
But the smile curve is something that we use in Value Pricing 1.0 to help firms craft their options for pricing. So if you offer 3 options, and that is primarily based on the types of services you're going to be providing. So it's different than the subscription that we were just talking about. But for 1.0, it works wonderfully. It's an incredibly powerful tool because it will also help you brainstorm and innovate new things that you could offer to the marketplace. So you can bake a little innovation into it. And it also and this I think is really neat, it also makes you think about all the things that you do and that that you absolutely take for granted because we're experts. We're like fish in water. The fish doesn't know what water is. They're just wet all the time, but they don't know that. And we're the same way with some of the things that we do. And it's some of those things based on this is what the smile curve shows very easily. Some of those things that we take for granted are the most valuable things we do in the eyes of the customer. And we tend to either give them away or not even think about them or talk about them or communicate their value to the customer. And yet the customer really, really values it. So things like diagnostics, things for, should I buy a new account? Should I transfer to a new accounting system? Should I get a new CRM system? Bookkeepers probably have something to say about this. And that diagnostic is incredibly valuable. And you know what? We tend to give it away. And so the smile curve is a way to kind of concretize your value to help you create options for when you price the customer. So I'm really excited to share that with your workshop participants, because the thing I find very interesting about bookkeepers is it's the sides of the smile curve, as you can imagine, that contain the most value. And what I found working with bookkeepers is they have a lot more diversity in what they can offer than, say, a CPA firm. Because, CPA firms are pretty rigid. They tend to stay in their lane. But because of the diverse backgrounds of bookkeepers, some of them come from industry, some come from HR, so they're perfectly comfortable, with some, doing an employee manual, for example, or maybe KPIs, or even help with pricing. Well, those are things that you can add to the smile curve and offer them to customers. And those things are very, very valuable. So it's just a framework for helping firms craft their pricing options.
Very exciting. I can't wait to participate in that. I will be there as well, listening and learning. And listener, if you have not registered yet, you go to the successfulbookkeeper.com/value. That will get you to register at that. And it's completely free as the gift from our wonderful sponsors, Ignition, Pure Bookkeeping, Intuit, and of course, the Successful Bookkeeper. So some great sponsors helping us make this real and happen. And so, Ron, I know our listeners are going to want to learn more. They're going to want to make sure that they know when that book. Can we buy the book pre yet? Can we go subscribe somewhere on one of your websites to make sure that we're first in line to get that information?
Best place to get me, and you can add your name to our mailing list, is thesoulofenterprise.com. That's the radio show that I do with Ed Kless that is available on all your podcast players. Comes out, we do a live show every Friday, and we've done 380 some odd shows now. And so if you register, you'll be on our email list, and I'm sure when you can pre-order the book, we'll probably send out a notice to that list, letting them know that we just approved the cover. So I don't think it's up on Amazon yet, but it will go up on Amazon, I'm told, I think sometime this month, or certainly by next month, and people can pre-order it there. And just especially for your Australian listeners, Michael, and in fact, everybody, because everybody knows this guy. I'm writing this book with Paul Dunn, and Paul Dunn and I, back in 2003, published The Firm of the Future, which kind of ushered in value pricing 1.0 to the professions, even though I had a book prior to that. When I teamed up with Paul, I think we kind of took it to the next level. So, and Paul is such an innovator and just such a dynamic guy that I think this is going to be a real big eye opener for folks. This book not only recommends this new business model, but some of the principles that Paul talks about in terms of making an impact on people's lives, just beyond just making money, and your purpose, and why you get out of bed in the morning. And I just find it inspiring. So I'm really excited to be working with him again.
Oh, very, very exciting. And I think that resonates with our listener completely. It's from my conversations with so many of the guests that come on the show and so many of the people that we work with, this industry is they're in it to serve. And so when it's not about the money, it's about the meaning that they get from it and the difference that they can make. So very exciting. I can tell you're lit up about the book. I know our listener will as well. So we can't wait till that happens. And I'm sure we will have you on again way sooner than 4 or 5 years that it's been. Let's get you back. We'll be talking about this book when it comes out on the podcast, get you to the summit. Ron, on behalf of our listener, I want to thank you for your generosity in coming on the show, sharing your wisdom, and helping us navigate through to a more valuable, fun, enjoyable business that it sounds like we can build with some of your knowledge.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.